Hey, this is Chris DeSantis. And if you've been listening to these videos or watching these videos, I should say, this is going on YouTube for a while, you know that we love starts here. And so it is with actually great sadness today that we mourn the end of the career of a great startsman, and that is Brad Tandy. Of course, he's still alive. He's just not going to be in international swimming competition anymore. And in case you're wondering, what makes somebody a startsman, or you've never heard that term before, I just came up with it this morning when I was thinking about recording this. So um, I figured I'd go ahead and define it. I think anytime you have somebody that's a sprinter that makes it up to an international level and is consistently beating other sprinters off the block or to the 15-meter mark in a race, that's that's what I would define as a startsman. So perhaps it's fitting that Tandy is moving on, since we'll be expanding on this club on an ad hoc basis. And I think Jordan Crooks is somebody who's probably ready to join the Startsman Club. So maybe they had to make room at the table and they asked Brad Tandy to leave. Um, Tandy announced his retirement, I guess, I don't know, or we heard about his retirement from somebody else at the South African swimming trials. And I still remember watching him start for the first time. It was way back in his JUCO days. So he came to swim. I believe he swam at Indian River Community College because if you were really good in junior college, that's where you went. And back when an 18-second 50 free was super impressive, he did an 18-second 50 free in junior college, parlayed that into a Division I swimming career at the University of Arizona, and then plenty of international success. And he certainly did a lot of that on the basis of his very impressive start. So, I think one of the reasons use this term is because essentially with a very short race like the 50 freestyle, the start's value is at its highest. And it's almost impossible to get up to the level that Brad Tandy got to without being very good at a start. A notable exception that a lot of people will probably remember from recent swimming history would be Anthony Irvin. On the other hand, the time that he won in 2016, he actually did so by getting his start from, and this is all relative, we're talking at the international championship level, from bad to decent. Okay. Because he was so fast once he got into the water, that he always was able to make up somewhat for the comparative disadvantage he had on the start. But there's a tremendous advantage to be gained from being good at the start, especially if you can get yourself out in some open water, because it'll affect some of the way you swim the rest of the race, what kind of water you can grab. You deal with less unpredictability when you're grabbing water that hasn't been influenced by the waves of swimmers next to you. And that's why sometimes you can see some unpredictable results in the 50, especially when somebody's gone really fast in the heats where they may have been able to get into that clean water um, at the beginning of the race. And then they find themselves in a final, and now they're with some other people that are going to be just side by side them when they break out at 15 meters. And all of a sudden they're not grabbing clean water to start. And, that clean water is very predictable in terms of how you can catch and start dealing with it, in comparison to a little bit of chaos when it's coming at you in a wave pattern from a subsequent lane. So Tandy broke out in the late 2000s, parlayed that into a career at Arizona, as I said. And we're going to get into some analysis. I actually borrowed the footage I'm about to show you from Abby Fish. So this is the Swim Like a Fish YouTube channel, and you can certainly watch her analysis of it. I've turned the sound off, so I actually don't know what she's saying over it. I haven't listened to it. And I just want to compare it into some of the other stuff we've done. If you watch earlier, I compared some footage from the 2020 Olympics with Dressel and Michael Andrew, and talked about Florent Monadou in that video as well. So I'm eager to get a little bit more of an in-depth look at some of the stuff Tandy was doing, because I can already picture some of the people I coach watching this and going, well, coach, you told me not to do that. So I will do my best to explain to you what I think is valuable and copyable and transferable to most of the swimmers out there, and what may just be a sort of flaky thing that he's doing, or what may be sometimes, again, I think Dressel is a great example of this, some things that he's doing that he can do because he has the level of skill and athleticism that he does. And so it works for him, but for most people, it just wouldn't really work. So I just get into sharing a screen here. We'll take a look at some video. Okay. I'm going to set this down to quarter speed and watch. So you can see here, Tandy is perfectly, he's done a good job getting in lane 8 so that we can watch him do this. It's the 2012 London Olympics. First thing I would look at in watching this is, and if you've watched previous videos, you know, I'm always looking for a postural alignment here in the starting position. I would, on the whole of starts that I've seen, and I think this is something that's gotten better over time, I would say this is pretty poor postural alignment. You can see there's a lot of curvature in his spine. But of course, the real test we're going to see here is not as much what he's doing on the blocks, but when he actually gets to taking off, what does his posture look like? Because it's possible to start with poor posture, but at the point of takeoff, actually have achieved a good posture. And in that case, it's the relevance of what he looks like standing on the blocks is greatly diminished. Still, I think for most people, being aligned posturally at the beginning and not giving yourself any room where you have to move to get into the proper postural alignment is certainly really helpful. But let's see how it progresses as he goes here. You can also see too, just weight wise, I would say, and I've seen this, I did listen to a couple other analyses before I looked at this. You can see he's definitely sitting back quite a bit weight wise. You can see how far back this shin is. And as he goes, you can see he sort of loads the weight back a little bit as they tell them to take their mark. Wait for the initiation of movement here. Okay, so the first movement he's making here is a little bit of a pull downwards. If you look at where his head is there versus where he was before the start, you can see a bit of motion blur in this video. So he's making a strong pull downwards, and you can see he's actually loading weight into his front foot. So, I think essentially you want to be driving off your front foot. So anybody, regardless of whether they pull back on the start or whether they're in a neutral position or either sort of leaning forward a little bit, their goal is to load weight into that front foot. So it's one of the first movements that he's doing, and he's pulled his head down a little bit here at the initiation of the start. Okay, now I don't love what I see here as we get to the takeoff piece. In my opinion, this you can see the shin. He's starting to drive off the front. You can tell also because his leg has left the back, um, and it's pointed at an upward angle. So this means by necessity, he's actually not pushing off the front of the block. You can see how he's got the ball of his foot on the top and he's actually driving off that piece. So he's going to be jumping up quite a bit. At the same time, posturally, his upper body is angled down. So it's not ideally what we would look for here is a ankle that's parallel to the water and a back that's parallel to the water as you try to drive off, because that means you've got everything aligned to push 100% in the direction you want to go. And to me, these are two sort of paradoxical movements that he's making here as he initiates the start. Oh boy. So people have made a lot of Caleb Dressel's arm swing. This is got to be one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And I did remember him doing an arm swing, but I don't remember it looking quite as dramatic as this one. So you can see he ends up with a lot of curvature in the back because he's also thrown his back foot up in the air. And that may actually work for him because what he's doing, if you look at how his upper body was angled down, this movement he's making with his upper body has actually brought it up quite a bit. So even though he's got this curvature in his back, he's fully off the blocks and he's still actually flying straight out in the direction you want to do. So it's a very acrobatic maneuver that he's doing. And the back leg push is in some ways compensating for what's happening in his upper body. Okay, so he's finished the arm swing. He's here out in the middle of the air and he's starting to get things aligned. You can still see at this point, his legs are separated. There are many different lines of movement for everything that he's doing. And just in that last frame, see if I can stop it on that frame. Right, sort of right barely there. He just manages to get himself aligned before he enters the water. Let's see. So like right there, he's just sort of slightly away. He's got a very, very impressive jumping distance. And you can see he's actually jumped quite far, and yet he's also entering the water slightly ahead of a lot of the guys he's competing against. Got a really good alignment to start kicking, and he comes, like, look at him in comparison. I don't know who this swimmer is next to him, but you can see the quality of the movement that he's doing underwater. This swimmer always ends up on this long upward angle, and his dolphin kick movement is really, really large. So he's probably feeling a lot of power from it, but I don't think he's getting nearly the speed maintenance. Like Tandy, if you look here, does a really good job right as he enters the water of, without losing a lot of speed from what he's doing, adjusting. He's just incredibly athletic what he's doing on this start. So to get himself aligned here, so this swimmer is actually angled down and then is going to try to angle up. And Tandy has essentially gotten right into the line he wants to do, and he's going to make a shallow approach to the surface from there. Watch that live. See that nice shallow approach? And he's ready to start swimming. He's ready to start swimming. He's got almost his whole body surfacing at the same time. Whereas this swimmer over here is going to, they're going to come up, and it's going to be sort of more of a submarine motion where their shoulders come up and then their legs come up second. See that? See, I was ready to start swimming. And look at him. Wow. It is pretty incredible where he's gotten to. So he's almost a half body length ahead of the swimmer next to him here as he initiates his breakout. And keep in mind, this is an Olympic final, so it's no slouch, the person next to him who he's starting to swim against. And because he's so far ahead, he is dealing with clean water out there. And, they're past they're just about to approach the halfway point. And I can see why he had limited success in international swimming, because you can see as they start swimming, if you just watch steadily, the rest of this field is getting ground on him with every stroke. So he's not able to sustain a lot of that speed with his actual freestyle swimming once he gets started. Fast forward to the finish here. See, he's actually almost moved to the back of the field by the time they get to the wall. I guess they have another look at the starts here, maybe. Oh, this is where Abby Fish is making her comments, like he's got his back foot loaded. He's engaged. I mean, my analysis on this is you have somebody with absolute unique athleticism and body control. You've probably 1 in a million athletes you might coach who would even be able to, with a lot of instruction over time, emulate most of the pieces of this. So that's to say, it's good knowledge to know should you happen to hit the genetic lottery. But there's very, very little of this that would be readily applicable to somebody that you have in your particular program, especially if you're not in like a elite college Division I program working on starts. So if you're in a club environment, high school environment, or even most college environments, you're unlikely to have someone who would benefit from emulating a lot of what he's doing. And that's Brad Tandy for you. He was definitely one of a kind. He was incredibly impressive, as you can see there in an Olympic final. I mean, let's you can compare, I should say, we talked about what Anthony Irvin's start looked like. He's quite a bit ahead of Irvin as they break out in this race. Irvin's one of these guys in the middle of the pool. But I guess I bagged too hard on Anthony Irvin's start because he's ahead of some of these other guys too. I have to look up what the lanes were, who this was in lane 7 that got absolutely smoked by Brad Tandy off the blocks. But we may never see another one like him. So pour one out for Brad Tandy.